All right. Hey, Daniel,
Hey,
thank you so
Sam.
much for joining the podcast. Man, this is great.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, but Daniel, I don't know if they warned you, but before we do any podcast, we got to butter your bread a little bit. We got to talk good about you. We do this thing called the over the top intro. We got to sing your praises while you're still here. Can I do that for you?
Absolutely. I'm
Let's get
ready.
it started. My next guest is a writer, director, producer. He is the pride of the Film and Media Arts Department at the University of Arizona. Go Sun Devils! He is known for his work in such films as Noah, Godzilla, and the Nickelodeon classic Hey Dude. That's my childhood right there. I got to toss that one out there. And for what we are here to talk about today, he's making his feature film debut with his film Running on Empty in theaters the 9th of August 2024 and on demand the 27th of August 2024. Daniel André, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. How you doing, Sam?
Man, I'm doing great. Man, I got a
Awesome.
chance. I know we don't have a ton of time, but I did get a chance to watch this film, and it's great. I got a chance to sit down,
Thank
and
you.
this was a, I hate to say it like this, but a summer movie. This is what I grew up on. I need to take a great movie, break it down to about 90 some odd minutes. I get my popcorn, I get my little snacks going, cuddle up with the wife, and just watch this insane story happen. How did this idea come about?
Yeah, I think it was like in the works my entire life. Now that I'm just realizing and we've gotten to this point with the film is actually I grew up with like a healthy dose of fear of death, like everybody. And in particular, I remember when I was 10 years old, my grandfather passed away, and we went back to New Jersey for his funeral, and it was the first funeral, first wake I'd ever gone to, and me and my mom takes me up to the casket, and there's my grandfather, and she holds his hand, and I just remember being I just remember thinking that's not him, that's not my grandfather, that's not who he is. He's gone. And I just thought it was like this weird ritual that we do, and especially in our society in the U.S., death is very much like taboo, and it's very dark. In other countries and other religions, it's much more a celebration of their life. And especially, if you're spiritual, if you believe in anything after death or whatever, you know, they're gone. They're happy. They're in the place where they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be this way. And so I think that was kind of part of it. And then I came across something on the internet years ago called extreme funerals, and they actually do this. They will put like people on a motorcycle or doing whatever, and I think that was sort of the thing that sparked the idea.
Okay. Well, I'm wording my questions very, very carefully, not to spoil this movie, because there are
Okay.
some points in here where you just I see where the idea came from. But what inspired the name change? Originally, I think this was called Morton Sherman
Yeah.
Oaks, right? Which is interesting because we
Yeah.
do meet Mort from Sherman Oaks. But what made you change the name?
Yeah, so that was actually that was above my pay grade. That's just for the US release.
Okay.
The international, it's still Morton Sherman Oaks. And I think really what it comes down to is just trying to um, be open to a bigger audience, I guess, in a weird way. It also, it sort of gives you a better sense of the film, because I love Morton Sherman Oaks and I love weird names of movies,
Hmm.
but most people, and when you're dealing with, when you have a movie on Lionsgate and on Universal internationally, those are important things. They're important. It's part of the filmmaking process. And then I looked it up too, and was a 1988 River Phoenix film, which is a little weird, but at the same time, I'm totally can't complain at all about having my movie with the same name as a River Phoenix film.
Okay. All right. Now, speaking of Morton Sherman Oaks, we do get a chance to meet him. But this was a great story, but I would even say an even better cast. And that's just my humble opinion. What did you have these people in mind when you were casting them? Because they feel like they fit each role perfectly.
Yeah. So initially, I think when you start writing a script, especially like your first feature, it's natural to be like, oh, I see this actor playing this person playing this person. And for me, I actually I tried to just be more open minded. Of course, I had ideas or little sparks to think maybe I'd see a TV show and be like, oh, maybe he'd be a good whatever. But what I find is that's just really setting yourself up for a bunch of resentments. Like what do they say? Expectations or resentments in the making. And so I tried to go about it by having as little expectations as possible. And that way, when we did find the right characters, I saw, I knew Keir originally from one of my favorite horror films, It Follows. And then I saw him in Atypical. And as soon as I saw Atypical, I was like, that. I mean, it's a different character, different ages, different background,
Right.
whatever. But I was like, that's Mortimer. I was just like, that's Mortimer. And thankfully, he read the script and he connected with it. And then, I met Lucy, and Lucy really, really loved the script. And then it kind of just snowballed, and pieces fall into place. And I like to credit it to the movie gods out here. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, if I'm trying to force this type of actor or this or whatever, every time you push against the universe, it's going to push right back. So as long as I try and just lean back and let it happen, it tends to work out for the best.
Now, one thing about this movie that I feel I could talk about a little bit more was the uncredited castmate, and that is essentially the city of Los Angeles. A lot of this was, where was this shot? It looks like Pasadena, but it was some Sherman Oaks. It was you were a little bit of everywhere.
You know LA, man. Yeah, it was a little Pasadena, a little Glendale, but mostly it was the Valley Village, Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys, Encino maybe. But it was, in it's weird. It was my little homage to the Valley because it's become my home since 2012, and I just, it's there's just something about it. And I really wanted to. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to shoot in LA, and to have that backdrop. And again, I think that's also a throwback to some of my favorite films, like one in particular, Punch Drunk Love, which I saw
Ah,
over 20 years ago. I think about over 20 years ago at the Angelica Theater, New York City, and that, like other movies, it had just a profound effect on me because it showed me as an adult that people were still making these weird, strange, left of center films that are more story and character driven versus like I love a good movie with plot and layers and this and that and whatever, and like a Chris Nolan movie.
right.
But I'm not a Chris Nolan writer, and I'm not Chris Nolan. So I can only I can only kind of speak or create art that I kind of identify with or care about. And so for me, it's stuff like Paul Thomas Anderson's old stuff, After Hours, Scorsese, Five Easy Pieces, Jack Nicholson. Yeah, and so for me, it was just important. It was more about the story and the characters versus the whole seriousness. It deals with serious subjects, but at the same time, I don't want to beat any audience over the head
Right.
with like a theme I think is important.
Now, one of the cool things about this film too, and we talked about your day, as a director and as a writer, but one thing you are is a DJ and a music producer. So there was a
Yeah.
nice score under this whole thing. I wonder, did you have any
Thank you.
input in that, or was that you?
Yeah.
Okay, on the ones and twos
Yeah. Well,
behind the whole thing.
I mean, so this is the thing too, is as musical as I am, it's funny, people have asked me a lot. They're like, why don't you score or do music for your own films? And for me, I kind of, when I'm picking what medium, what lane to work in, I want to stick in that, and I want to focus on that. And I don't want to spread myself too thin. I also want to invite collaborators, because this is a collab. It's not about me. And for me, the most important thing I've learned about filmmaking and making films and getting films made is it's not, you have to take yourself out of the equation. Like once you write it, take yourself out of the equation. It's not about you anymore. It's about the cast. It's about your producers. It's about the companies you're going to work for, who are going to help you bring this out into the world. And so for me, I find, taking me out of it as much as possible really, really helps bring it to fruition. So like with the score in particular, I laid down like all the temp music. And then we brought in a great composer, and he took that and just elevated it onto a whole different level. And that's the thing too, is that you can't you can't think you're just this creative genius over everything. You got to, that's why you got to be open to everybody. You got to be open to the actors, to the musicians, to the crew members, to everybody, because that's what's going to make it unique. Not just my vision. There are some vision, like Paul Thomas Anderson, these other like auteur guys who are just, they can do everything and they do it freaking amazingly. And who knows, maybe I'll develop into that one day, but that's not me right now. And so I can just work with what's truest to me, I guess.
Okay, well, we're up against it. I got one more question. This is
Yep.
kind of an important question. So, but I just want to close with this. What do you want the audience to feel after watching this film?
To feel that, that it's okay to pause, like to enjoy life. Life is that the meaning of life is life itself. Is kind of what I've come to learn over the years. And I think we just find all of these ways, like our jobs, and we got to pay bills, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and all this drama. And then at the end of the day, we might have 2 minutes to think, like, what's the meaning of life? Like, the meaning of life is being alive. Like, instead of like, worrying about the traffic and this and that, like sit in the traffic and put on some tunes or put on a podcast, like learn something, read a book, listen to an audio book. Like, this is why we are here, to enjoy every second of it. And that's really what I hope people take away from it.
Well, Daniel, this has been a treat. You're welcome to come back whenever you want, man.
Absolutely.
I wish we had more time, but hey, you're more than welcome
Next
to
time.
chop it up. But thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
All right, have a great one.
You too.
Right.
Bye.